Hello Nikki, hello Transport Evolved. I'm going to talk with a slightly louder voice because I realise the acoustics in this room aren't too great, and I've got a mic I could use but it's awkward, and these are meant to be quick videos, so let's see if talking loud helps. You accused me of talking in generalisations about baby boomers, but the discussion we were having was about generalisations. It was about politics and politicians and why they are so anti-EV, and that's not universal, so I think my generalisation was valid. And yes, I am blaming the baby boomers. They have had the most period in history which was the most prosperous, where they could get what they wanted. And what did they choose to do with it? They, on a whole, chose to be selfish, to act in a way which destroyed or is working towards destroying the planet. And quite frankly, I'm a little pissed off with that. The issue, I think, comes from that when people look at the narrative of their own life, people paint themselves as the hero. Now, electric cars and global warming and climate change and solar panels come along, and they get this issue with their narrative because by accepting that technology, they have to admit that the justifications they used for the previous 40 years were wrong. Now, that is a generalisation. Some people are perfectly fine with that, and I do know a load of baby boomers who have solar panels and electric cars and are really pushing forward the agenda. But look at it on the whole. It's not happening. Long distance EV trips. Yeah, I think they're fine. I do like them because they're a trade-off. You're trading off speed for cost. But interestingly, I think we're going to see in the sort of medium-term future longer range journeys moving towards the electric car rather than petrol or diesel cars because of the cost. And I think we'll get to a point in history where people will be making longer distance trips in EVs. So putting in the infrastructure now actually makes sense if you've got a medium to long-term plan. But, there's another but, I don't think this is the realm of private companies. I don't think there's any business model people can use at the moment to justify installing all of these rapid chargers to make money in a potential hypothesis future in 10 years' time. What I think we should do, large-scale infrastructure projects are the realm of governments. That's why governments exist, to take on these kind of projects that private companies can't do. And talking about the electric cars, and maybe they have been tuned for range, and I think that's right, and I still think that maybe they should have faster acceleration. I guess what I'm arguing for is electric cars need a pull. They need something that makes consumers see them as more desirable. At the moment, the manufacturers are relying on two pulls which I don't think are working. One of which being the green factor, and that's not working because of what I just talked about. And the second one being the long-term cost being less. And that's not working because the manufacturers aren't giving people the right information, and people instinctively don't make those kind of choices. So these cars, which we know are wonderful, are being missed because they don't have an overriding pull. There's no one driving feature which is pulling people towards them, bar technology, which gets people like you and me interested because we're geeks. So acceleration, every electric car out there has an amazing 0 to 60, and amazing being relative to the field it's in. So a 5, 6, 7-seater people carrier has a 0 to 60 in 7-second range, and a car like the Leaf has one in the 5-second range. That would be a very obvious pull that people understand. If I buy an electric car, I'm going to get a car that leaps off the line. And it gives electric cars this one defining feature that people can latch onto. But I do love the idea of multiple motors. Multiple motors would really, really work. If I could throw another one into that mix, something I've dreamt about as an upgrade for my Leaf is a new gearing ratio box. So you've got the electric motor goes through a gearing reduction box, which is set a certain ratio, and then to the wheels. And this is tuned for a certain type of driving. However, 90% of my driving with my Leaf is on the motorway, and I'm fairly sure the Leaf's gearing has been set so it gets optimum efficiency in and around towns at speeds of about 30 to 40 miles an hour. I want a drop-in gearbox replacement that changes that so it gets optimal performance in the range of 60 to 70 miles an hour. And that would make the car go further for me. At least I believe it would. Now, if there's someone out there who can tell me why I'm wrong in that thinking, that would be brilliant. But I'm fairly sure that would work. Let me know what you think, Nikki. Love to hear from you, Transport Evolved people. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.